side. So and that's what we're in the middle of at the moment, and that's the way I see it. Thank you, Beth. Harry from ITV.
Thank you very much. Harry Hilton from ITV News. You've talked about endless reviews and consultations, not trusting your own instincts. Some people might hear that and think it sounds a little bit like your own first 7 months in government. We didn't hear anything about abolishing NHS England in your manifesto. Do you accept that you weren't prepared for the realities of government and the way it works? And if I may, a second question, following that. ITV News revealed last week your government's plans to slash billions from the welfare bill. Is cutting benefits a price worth paying if it means getting some people back to work?
Well, look, Harry, let me take it again in stages. Firstly, we knew before we came into government that things would be bad, because that was obvious, I think, across the country, that our economy was damaged, that our public services weren't working very well, the NHS was completely on its knees. I think this breaks the heart of many people, by the way, because my wife worked in the NHS, my mum worked in the NHS, my sister worked in the NHS.
But he's walking, he's all right.
The idea of the NHS on its knees was not just a political issue in the
That's how
election.
they need to let him see.
What we discovered when we came into government was that things were far worse. So the hole in our economy was even bigger than we thought, £22 billion. People say to me, you're just making a political point. I wish.
But he's walking like this.
Make that money up in our first budget. I didn't want to have to do that. Our prisons were full to overcrowding. I talked about the riots just a moment ago when I had my opening words. During the riots, we had an underground room at Downing Street called the Code Room, where we were directing our response. I had to have the number of prison places in every prison up on the data set.
Orientation is locked.
So close to the numbers, because the prison
people are seeing it.
No Prime Minister should ever be put in that position. And so everywhere we look, things were worse. So we've got to react to that. And yes, I suppose I'm a bit reflective, and I've asked for all the regulatory bodies to be put on the table. Said to each member of the cabinet, I want every single regulatory body that comes within your remit to be identified. I want you to look at them all. I want to put them all on the table and have a look at them. And there's too many. And we've got too many arm's length bodies and agencies. And yes, my reflection is we've got to cut through that. And that's why we're taking the measures that we've taken today. But just as it were to push back on the challenge, I would also point out we've had 3 interest rate cuts since we've been in government. That means everybody's mortgage is going down. We've got wages going up higher than prices, which is crucially important for families across the country. And we promised at the election we'd have 2 million extra NHS appointments in the first year of a Labour government. And we've already done it within the first 7 months. And that lowering waiting list 5 months in a row, in a sense, it's what you should expect, it's what you deserve, but it hasn't been done like this, consistently getting those waiting lists down. That is us delivering in government, and so much else on top of that. But am I reflecting on 6, 7, 8 months in government and recognising the problems of breaking with that there's too much stodge and regulation that gets in the way of us getting on with the job? Yes. And therefore my reaction is to just get on and change it. And you know, it's just my approach to politics. Lots of people walk around the problem many times and do massively brilliant rhetorical speeches about them and change nothing. I tend to look at the problem, poke it, and then just change it. And that's what we'll do today. On your second point about welfare, I mean, you heard what I said earlier. The welfare system, as it's set up, that can't be defended on economic terms or moral terms. Economically, the cost is going through the roof. So if we don't do anything, the cost of welfare is going to go to £70 billion a year. That's a third of the cost of the NHS. That's more than the Home Office and our prisons combined. So we're making choices here. What we do about, most people say to me, look, I need to have police officers on the beats. I want to see the criminal justice system working. I want to know I can go down my high street safely. But we're going to end up, we don't do anything, with a bill that's higher than paying for the Home Office and prisons combined. But at the same time, you can't even defend the system. Say, look, it's working really well. Anybody who needs help to get to work is help, and more people are now in work than before. We're adapting work so those who've got disabilities can be at work, which is what we should be doing. No, we set up a system that basically says, if you try the journey from where you are into work, and anything goes wrong, you'll probably end up in a worse position when you started. And so understandably, many people say, well, I'm a bit scared about making that journey. Therefore, we're baking in too many people not being able to get into work. And that's across the board. I use the example of young people because I just think it's so tragic that people who are just starting their journey in life are already stuck in a system that won't let them get to where they need to be, in my view. That is not a good thing, I don't think, for them or for the country. Thank you very much, Harry. Tris, GB News.
That's the upside down. Is it
Prime
not
Minister
your-
Christopher Hope from GB
This
News.
your
He
talk
said
like
that
this.
every
That's
pound
the upside down.
must deliver for working people.
Fuck
So
the
it's a
writing, I'm talking
challenge
of
from
this.
GB
You're
News.
very stupid.
Is today
You're
the
very
day,
stupid
March
person. That's why
30th,
you can't
you
hold
call
it.
time
You're making me
on woke diversity, inclusion and
How come
equity
you get that from
policies,
here? I
tell
don't know
civil
where you're
servants
coming
to put
from.
the needs of taxpayers
I need something to be straight. You're telling me, this is
and
what
to
is like
use
this
the,
name that.
to take it on from
Why you
bring
like
Sky
this?
News. You said there that Sky, Russia
Why
is
you
menacing
talking?
our skies,
Why
watered
wait,
our
why do you want
streets.
me to leave here?
Trump yesterday made suspect again of World
Look, I
War III.
promise you.
The same thing to
You
you.
know, I
when you're in the
promise you
Oval
within
Office.
this time,
Are you going to
this
send
me and you,
British
this
children
thing,
to war?
I swear
And
to
how are
God,
you
I
thinking
will
about that
separate.
right now?
Well, Chris, every pound has to be spent rightly. Every pound we have at our disposal as a government is not our money, it's taxpayer money, it's your money. It's money that people have put in, expecting the government to use it properly and wisely. And we must keep that in mind with every decision that we make. And that's why we're making the announcements that we made today. We're not slashing our commitment to equality and important issues like that. Nobody would expect that. But we are making sure we're stripping away what is unnecessary. And the examples are coming forward even today. On the bigger question, if you like, of the global stability, we are in a more volatile period now than I think most of us can remember. I certainly feel that, and most people I talk to certainly feel that. And therefore, what we've got to do is keep our eye on the prize, or what we need to do, which is a lasting peace in Ukraine and a secure peace in Ukraine. And that is why we're doing everything we can to ensure that there are negotiations, that those negotiations do lead to peace. It's got to be peace that allows Ukraine to be sovereign and secure. And it's got to be peace that lasts, because there have been settlements in Ukraine before, as you know, which have not been backed up. Nobody's defended the deal, and Putin's just crossed the line again when he wants to. That is not good for Ukraine, it's not good for Europe, and it's not good for us, because the reason energy prices have gone through the roof in the last 3 years is because of conflict in Ukraine. Impact on your prices, on the cost of living here because of Ukraine, and already, as I say, Russia menacing our skies and our waters, and our streets. In fact, if you look at some of the incidents like Salisbury. So we have to keep our eyes on that prize. Everything I'm doing is intended to ensure that we keep the peace. Nobody wants conflict, and no Prime Minister wants to deploy our troops to conflict, but we do want to deploy them to keep peace. And we do that in other countries to make sure that we don't have conflict. And that's why I'm working hard with others to make sure that when the question is asked, are the European countries prepared to play their part in making sure that a deal is defended? Then the answer is yes. Obviously, it has to be done in conjunction with the US. I've been really clear about that. And we'll continue working to that end. I do think that the talks on Tuesday between Ukraine and the US were productive. I was very pleased to see the US intelligence and support went back into Ukraine. It's really important that happened. And obviously, we're making further progress. And this Saturday, I will convene international leaders again to progress this still further. But it's very important in a time like this to keep our eyes on what is it we're trying to achieve, and that is lasting and secure peace in Ukraine. Thank you, Chris. I've got Tim from BBC. I think we're regional as well here, Tim.
Tim Iredale, BBC Look North. Prime Minister, welcome to
Oh.
Hull. Back in the 19th century, here in the north of England, we had a group of people who were very popular at the time called the Luddites. Fast forward to the 21st century, how would you describe someone who is reluctant to embrace new ways of working? Also, if I may, you're putting a lot of faith here in modern technology. If modern digital technology is so great, how can two giant ships collide in the North Sea?
Well, firstly, let's celebrate being here in Hull. We were here just a few weeks ago for John Prescott's funeral, a great man of the area. And in terms of the Luddites, I think we have to understand, if we're honest, why people are apprehensive about change. And they are. Most people want things to get better. And they recognise they can be better, and actually will put their hands up for change that will make that better. But there is a worry about change. What would it mean for me? What would it mean for my community? What will it mean? Will I have to take responsibility for something that might go wrong? So we have to bring people with us on this journey. But what history shows us is that we can't stand still. Every time we've gone through change, it has been massively for the better. Take energy, and we've been through big changes of energy as we've gone through the age of sort of coal to oil and gas, and now on to renewables. They're all big periods of change, but they bring big opportunities with them. This is another moment of opportunity, and we need to bring people with us on that. We need to seize it, because in the end, if we don't change, we can't deliver for working people across the country. Everybody wants a better NHS. Everybody wants their roads and their railways to work better. Understandably, that's a perfectly reasonable demand. People generally want a safe and secure place that they can live, either in reasonable rented accommodation or ideally buying their own home. None of that can happen without change, and therefore this is both necessary and of huge benefit to people. In relation to the collision, firstly I do want to acknowledge those that are responding to it, have responded for the last couple of days, going out and dealing with a very difficult situation just off the coast here. We're obviously monitoring it all of the time. In terms of the cause of it, that's yet to be determined. There's a process now in place, as you probably know, with an arrest. But we have to get to the bottom of it. But the immediate thing is to deal with the problem in front of us, which is the aftermath of the collision. And as I say, I'd just like to acknowledge the good work of those that are actually out there doing really hard work in very difficult circumstances, which they did not expect to be in. I pay tribute to them. Thank you very much. And I got Michael from ITV.
Morning, Prime Minister. Michael Billington, ITV Calendar. Following the crash between the Salon and the Stella Immaculate off the East Yorkshire coast on Monday, the leader of Hull City Council has been calling for a Cobra meeting. Today, Ed Davey is saying there should be some sort of summit involving the government here in Yorkshire. Why have those things not happened, and what is the government doing to respond to any potential environmental disaster? And following the theme from my colleagues, NHS England has a large presence here in Yorkshire in Leeds. What would you say to those people who are now worried they might end up on the scrap heap? And how do you achieve any of this without putting pressure on the welfare bill, which you've already described as indefensible?
Yeah, firstly, in relation to response to the collision, we are absolutely monitoring this 24/7, and I've got teams doing that and assuring me of what's going on. At the moment, the situation is reasonably contained, and obviously we will do whatever is necessary. But rest assured, this is being dealt with 24/7 by the government departments, and I am getting answers through to me. Because I need to be assured that that is happening, and therefore I myself plugged in and making sure that we've got what we need. And I'm not closed-minded to whether we need to do something else, but at the moment the most important thing is to ensure that the action that's needed to retrieve and recover the situation is uppermost. I just want that to happen as quickly and as safely as possible. So that's what's uppermost in my mind. Look, in relation to the NHS, we can't. You put to me all of the reasons why nobody ever does anything, because there's always a consequence of a decision. And if the answer to every decision is I'm not going to do it because there can be consequences, you never make any decisions. And then you end in this sort of defensive crouch where nothing gets done. Is it a good idea for the front line of the NHS to get rid of 2 sets of comms teams, two sets of strategy teams, two sets of policy teams where people are basically doing the same thing. Yes, it is. And it's very difficult for me to look at people who desperately need the NHS, haven't got the treatment that they want at the speed they want through no fault of the front line, say I could do something about it. And I don't think this duplication is very sensible, but I'm not going to do it. That is what's gone wrong in politics, which is an unwillingness to take difficult decisions. And that's why we end up where we are. So we have to take difficult decisions. Obviously, the people in NHS England are hugely qualified, highly skilled, doing a fantastic job. And we will work with them in relation to what comes next. Of course we will, because I believe in dignity and respect for work. I believe in dignity and respect of every single individual. It's one of the most important values that I hold as a politician and before I was a politician. So not abandoning anybody in this, but I can't look people in the eye who say I want a quicker appointment and say I could do something to help you, but I'm not going to do it because you know, I'm somehow fearful of making a difficult decision. I'm not going to do that. I haven't done that in politics. I'm not going to start now. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you particularly for those that are behind me. I guess I realise I've been facing this all the way, so I'll come and say hello to you, and thank you for standing all the way through as well. Thank you, and thank you, Angela. It's a fantastic.
So there we go, that is Keir Starmer, who is taking questions from journalists after his big announcement that the government is to abolish the arm's length body NHS England. It came during a speech about public sector reform. The Prime Minister said, I don't see why decisions about 200 billion of taxpayers' money should be taken by an arm's length body. He said that the government will cut bureaucracy across the state and bring the management of the NHS back into democratic control. Let's get more on this now with our health correspondent Nick Triggle, who's in the newsroom. Nick, the government just issued a press release saying the world's largest quango scrapped under reform to put patients first. For anyone who doesn't understand the workings, what does NHS England do, and what will now happen if it is scrapped?
Well, this is the organisation that leads the day-to-day running of the health service. It was set up under the 2012 reform